ask your professional opinion on the situation that has happened with Canelo. Can I get your take on the whole situation?
Well, good, because I'm going to end up boring you. I got a real bee in my bonnet about doping, cheats, and not just the people that cheat, but how the authorities are dealing with it, and how the people who are putting these banned substances on lists need to inform everybody. You need to inform all the governing bodies so that all of the participants can be informed on a regular basis. Everyone has a printed list of what chemicals they can't take. Once there's a definitive list of what everyone knows, then you can say, fine, now I am personally responsible for everything. And because there's not this clear structure to what's on the list and how people get that information, because how do you know you're breaking the law if you don't know it's a law, right? And when it comes to certain chemicals, it's kind of like that. And because there's this gap in the flow of important information, you then have gaps where people can create their little stories to get out of it. Like, must have been my hamburger. Really? Right? There's that, firstly. And will it change? I don't know, because there's too much money involved in having these guys in these fights, right? Because it's been the last few decades where fighters have failed dope tests, had a slap on the wrist and carried on being world champions. Or someone fails a dope test, having won a fight, they fail a dope test, they pay a governing body a small fine, they keep the win on their record, the fella that got knocked out and lost keeps the loss on his record, the fella that was the victim in this situation doesn't get any financial compensation, right? It's the whole system. It's all, and what's happening is, everything's being pointed to the cheats, which it should be. But these people that are cheating aren't being punished adequately, and they're also being allowed to have these little escape route answers because the flow of information is not clear enough. Personally, I think the whole thing needs to be overhauled. I hope it does. I don't expect it to, but time will tell.
What do you make of Canelo's coach being a former butcher? Do you think that he should have known better, especially considering that, you know, the Mexican beef it's a nationwide issue?
Well, it's only in recent times I've started watching documentaries that are enlightening me of what the meat industry does with the meat that it's farming, because the meat industry is making meat for profit.
Yeah.
So the more it can get out of one animal, the more profit it's going to make, and it will do whatever it has to. And then there's spin-off scenarios where there must be some chemicals in the meat. Should a butcher know? A butcher who's a boxing coach? I don't know. The whole thing is so sophisticated and so big. In your country, some of your laws support the meat industry and stop people criticizing them. So it goes up to that level. So how can you really know? Well, it's not practical to rear your own animals and be a fighter. So how can you even know that you're eating meat where if it says it's organic? How do you know it's organic? Do you understand? It's such a mess. It really is such a mess that maybe what's on the banned lists needs to be reviewed, because the easy thing for these people that make decisions is just to keep adding things to the list. Well, that improves performance, add that to the list. But actually, how much does it improve performance? And should it be on the list? Maybe the whole thing needs to be overhauled so it can be manageable and the flow of information is consistent, but also that the penalties are consistent and even. If you're a coach and your guy gets knocked out and you go to hospital with him and there's a loss on his record, and you know now that when next time he fights, ain't gonna be for the same money, and you go and find out that the guy that did it was on an anabolic substance, so he gets penalized with a 6-month ban or a year ban, but he keeps the win on his record and your guy keeps the loss, and he pays a fine of $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 to the governing body, and your guy doesn't get a penny of it. How are you going to feel? I think it needs to be addressed.
Oh, it 100% needs to be addressed, which is why it's so important to discuss the matter, because I feel like just as Eddie Hearn says, the politics, or, you know, there's so many sort of political sides to this that it doesn't come off fair. It's just not fair. You're right. It should 100% be a loss on the cheaters. And
a win by disqualification on the guy that lost.
Yeah.
The devil is always in detail, right? And sometimes people talk too much, and there's so many different arguments and considerations to take into account. Then all of a sudden, you know, it's too much. It's too big an issue. It can't be resolved. Just keep pointing at the people that we catch and keep fining them. But that's really not the way to go about it. If we strip it down to some basic facts, have a definitive list, make sure that everyone gets that list, that everyone's responsible for being given that list, and once they're given it, so they know the law, and that there's a clear pathway down to them, then everyone knows, right, now I am responsible because I can't plead ignorance. But also, these people that put these chemicals on this list need to be realistic. They need to look at the world as on a whole and how the food chain, right, and how the food chain's managed, because that's feeding into it. Or just let everyone do everything. Say nothing's banned, because that would be an even playing field too, right? But then all of a sudden, you're going to have other problems.
Yeah. Do you think the fight should still continue, Canelo versus Triple G?
Now I'm torn, right? Because I'm cursed with the fact that I admire Canelo's skill sets, and I have done for a long time. They keep going on about this B sample and that he's failed the B test now. Yeah. But my understanding is that the B sample is the same as the A sample, that they take the blood, they've got some blood, and they just split it, but it's the same test. So they could do the Z sample, he's failed it 26 times, right? But it's the same section of blood. Yeah. How much was there in it? It's such a mess. The punishments are so inconsistent, and there are people who have failed for much worse substances, have still been allowed to earn money and fight. Why should he not? Interesting thing, why did Nevada State leave the hearing until April the 10th? They had all the information they needed, so they could have made a decision. And the decision is based on people sitting in a room, discussing it and coming to a conclusion. That could be done in one day. But they delayed that hearing for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, to effectively make it impossible to sell the event. And that, to me, was the strangest thing. More strange than Canelo failing the B sample was, why did the Nevada State leave the decision until the 10th of April? Because how's the venue going to sell tickets at 3 weeks? Right. How are you going to have pay-per-view with 3 weeks notice and market it and do everything in preparation for that? That seemed a bit strange to me.
So do you think that, based on what you just said, because that just made me think, do you think that because they're still promoting the fight to continue forward, do you think that this is just a bit of a strategic move, that it's a formality for the hearing, as opposed to we're really actually going to do something about it?
But if it was a formality, why not get the formality over and done with formally as quickly as possible to allow the business event to take place? Because HBO, or the broadcaster, now they've got to invest in making footage, interviews, preview shows.
Do you know that they haven't promoted it since?
Well, that speaks volumes as well, right?
Yeah.
The whole thing just seems a little bit off to me. I don't think the fight's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because I hear that the venue are also offering refunds now. And the people that are going to miss out and lose out are the fans. Why did the Nevada State delay that hearing until April the 10th? I'd love to know why.
It's a fantastic question, because I'd love to know why too. Gennady Golovkin said that should he not go forward and fight Canelo next, that he's looking for a British star to fight, and the only other person I could think of is the WBO champ, Billy Joe Saunders. How do you think that Billy would do in a fight against Gennady Golovkin?
Better than people had thought he would have done in recent times. I think that Billy's career now seems to be on an upward trajectory. I don't think Triple G's is. I think Triple G showed in the Jacobs fight and in the Alvarez fight that he can be outboxed. And Billy Joe is a very clever, quick-handed boxer who can dig with that right hand a little bit as well. And I think that's a much closer fight now than it was even a year ago.
Does he win?
Can he win?
Can he win?
Of course he can, yeah. That's what I'm trying to say, right? If Billy Joe outboxed him, I wouldn't be surprised. I know Billy Joe. I know how clever he is. He is a very shrewd guy, and in the ring has got a very high IQ.
All right, Adam, thank you so much for your time. I know everyone's starting to clear out, but it's nice to finally speak with you. We will speak again.
Thank you very much.
Bye, fight fans.
Hey Fight fans, it's Michelle Joy Phelps. If you haven't already subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure you do so by clicking this icon right here, or else